never learned, was never taught how to be in right relationship with myself. Now I know there was that honeymoon period.
Yeah.
And then there was the flip. And then I was like, whoa, what's happening here? I'm confused. So it was this is, okay, we're just going to express things. I was dating his roommate.
Oh,
my freshman year. It's like, I've never
good.
said this publicly, so you really believe that. So tomorrow is going to give me another opportunity to choose. Mm-hmm. Do I choose to be in good relationship with myself, or do I choose to relinquish my power to someone else?
Welcome to the Love Means Business podcast. On this show, we celebrate love as the beautiful, sometimes dangerous, and always powerful force that it is. I'm your host, Emily Green, an agency founder, business consultant, professional speaker, mom, wife, and survivor of toxic love. From the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, on each episode, we will explore true stories of dark love and how sometimes our personal struggles can lead to our greatest professional passions.
All right. Well, welcome to the Love Means Business podcast. I'm excited to have Trina, right? That's how you pronounce it, Trina, joining me today. So Trina helps empower alpha women to lead the way as a life coach and business advisor. She's a featured author in the anthology book Awareness Put Me On, which I read. It was awesome. And you just launched Radiant Real. Do you want to talk a little bit about that real quick, or do you want me to talk about it?
Sure, I can. Radiant Real has been a vision for many, many years. Didn't have the name, but the idea of bringing women together in a personal setting where I just envision sitting around couches and just supporting women.
Kind of like this, right?
Exactly.
Like cozy, like space.
Yeah. And so even when I owned a transportation company in the past, we had a big lounge area, and I could just sit and I would envision like, oh, maybe in the evenings I could bring women in here.
Yeah.
We could sit around and really be honest and open about life, and I could coach them. It's what I wasn't a coach at the time, but I had this in my soul, and I did call it coaching, but all things come together eventually. And so eventually in March, my coach called me to the carpet in the space like, okay, it's time to take vision and move into action.
I love that.
And so I was like, okay, let me pick a date. And I picked a couple of dates, and then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm turning 59, finishing my 59th year on May 2nd. It'd be a great first day, May 3rd of my 60th year, to do something different and to commit to really focusing on fulfilling my vision of bringing women together. So I thought the first time, let me bring some people I know, already have a relationship with, and just see what happens, see what I learn. Because it's really about real women sharing real stories and developing real leadership. Because at this point, I believe in our current state of affairs in the country, it is really important for women to rise into their real leadership. And the only way we can do that, based on my belief system, is that we come together and support each other and support each other. Yeah.
I love that. Well, you took some of the rest of the bio I was going to say, but I'll still read it. Okay. So you got a long history of being a driven professional that drives results. You've owned several businesses. One of them was a successful transportation business that you sold. So we have that in common. Maybe we can dive into like all that goes into, growing a business, selling it, all the things, because it's a lot. And your diverse background really gives you unique insights and specific knowledge that are invaluable to your clients. And I can tell you in just like talking to you, like you just have a passion, you really glow when you talk about what you do, which is amazing. So today we are going to be diving in and talking about your professional and personal journey. So we're going to dig deep. Are you ready to get personal?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I always like to start kind of rewinding the old, VHS tape, if people even know what that is. Some people watch it.
I'm gonna get a look.
Yeah, they're not gonna know what that is. But back it was like be kind, rewind, whatever. Okay, so rewinding back. Not I can't say my R's today. Let's go back. Where did you grow up? So tell me a little bit about your childhood and what was younger Gina like?
Well, I grew up in rural South Carolina.
Okay.
A place called St. Helena Island. And it has a rich history. I didn't know it growing up, but looking back, it has a rich, rich history around strong African-American people who stood boldly for civil rights. My parents, my grandparents, they were very much involved in the civil rights movement in the 60s. I was born in 1966. So I'm right there in the crux of it all.
Yeah.
Even Martin Luther King visited there because there's a school there called Penn Center now, but it was Penn School, where it's one of the first schools for free Negroes in the South. And that's where some of my father's siblings, they went to school for.
It's really interesting.
That's where Martin Luther King visited, and it's a historical site. But I grew up there with that rich history in that just being in my DNA. And both, so I always felt and knew that I could walk into any room, do anything. I never questioned that.
Yet.
So that helped shape me in strength, in presence, and at the same time, growing up in a beautiful family, loving parents, there were some challenges for young Trina. In that, you said we're going to go deep, so
No, right?
so
We're in a safe space. We've got the therapeutics, like the smells, no sounds, everything. So it's calm, safe space.
So young Trina, while there was the dynamic of parents who supported me from an education perspective, supporting me in my strength as an African-American young girl, and all of those things, having a strong family unit, and at the same time having my father, who had a father who was just not a very kind man at all. So that trickled into impacting my father, who then dealt with some of his pains and challenges through the use of alcohol. And because of that difficulty and challenge around the alcohol experience in the home, it created some challenges for me because I was a strong personality. So when there were challenges in the home, when it was verbal, there was never anything beyond verbal negativity in the house, but I would be the one to step in sometimes and open my mouth when it was really
So almost like the protector,
and then the pleaser all in the midst of those things. And then there was times I was the receiver that was crumbled under the pressure. So there was that part of me that was strong and would fight back. And then there was a part of me that would crumble in the hurt and pain, because I've recently come to understand one thing about me is I do not like mean-spirited, hurtful behavior. And some people can take it, but it crushes me. Yeah, so...
Are you a sensitive person, would you say?
Yeah, my brother used to call me Crybaby Louie.
Oh, that's not very nice. That sounds like a brother.
He's 7 years older than me.
Right.
So, but yeah, I was very emotional, very sensitive, and often feared that emotionalism that existed in me because I had two uncles who had mental illness that crushed under the pressure of emotional and mental stress, that it did not bode well for them. So growing up seeing that, I had that fear. So these are some of the things as a child that helped shape me to, put that emotional thing, put it down, because I believed I couldn't handle it, because I saw what could happen. So
interesting. Okay, so walk me through, how did you get from there, the island life, which sounds beautiful, by the way. That sounds amazing. How did you get from there to here? So where did you go to college? All of that.
So I was, to survive my challenges, I poured myself into my education, into my books. I was a straight A student almost throughout high school.
I believe that, though your personality.
That's what I could control. I could control that because it's all about me. And so I graduated number 2 in my high school class, went on to Clemson University in South Carolina, where I majored in chemistry and graduated magna cum laude there. So there's that, hey, I can do this education. I can pour myself into that. So I went there. I met my ex-husband at college at Clemson and left from there. I worked in for DuPont Chemical, DuPont Pharmaceuticals, went into corporate America, realized they're this isn't me. Corporate world is not designed for me. So I had always had that intuition of what was the right place for me to be and to do. And so then we got married and decided that the best thing for us was for me to, I decided based on the fact that he played professional football.
Okay.
And so we moved from Cleveland back to South Carolina in the off season and back and forth. So that put me in a position, I was in pharmaceutical sales at the time.
Yeah.
That this is either I stay here and choose my career,
Right.
or I choose to step away from that for the sake of my family is what
Yeah.
I felt. So I chose my family because financially it wasn't a necessity for me to
Right.
work. However, I did learn some things, and we can go into that deeper.
we're gonna go into that.
What
Yep,
that
we're gonna go
what
into
I
that.
learned from that. But that's the story. And
Yeah.
then we had many years of being married, and back in 2019, I made the choice, courageous in the midst of fear and trembling, that it was time for me to end that relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, are you ready to dive into a little bit more about that relationship?
Yes.
Okay. So, this podcast, we explore love in all of its facets, right? The dark, the light, positive, the negative, all of that. So, tell me about when you first met your ex-husband.
Well, it's interesting. We met at college, like I said, but the reality, this is, okay, we're just going to express things. I was dating his roommate.
Oh,
My freshman year. It's like, I've never
good.
said this publicly, so you really believe that. So, it's at the point in my life that my life is my life, and there are things in the world that say, oh, that's something to be ashamed of.
It's not.
But
Come on,
we
no.
dated. I was
Yeah.
dating his roommate, and we became friends, and we were friends for like 3 years. We became
Yeah.
buddies. We'd hang out together.
Yeah.
My roommate and I were buddies, and the three of us would hang out. But for some reason, everybody wanted to put me and him together. And we're like,
Yeah.
no, absolutely not.
Everyone
We're
else could see it, but you guys
yeah,
couldn't see
it's
it.
like, no,
Yeah.
we're just friends. So that's how we started out, truly as friends, being accused of hiding something that we really weren't.
Yeah.
And then senior year of our senior year, something just clicked, and then
So it shifted.
shifted in the
You guys, you
atmosphere.
let him out of the friend zone.
Yeah. And even in that, Emily, I knew that's not really what I wanted at the time.
So, do you think you ever were completely like romantically into him, or do you think it just kind of was one of those things that, like, I don't know,
I
really,
was
should try
romantic.
it?
I was romantically into him, but I was at a place at that moment in time that I felt that it wasn't time for me to be in a relationship. I had made a
Okay.
decision based on some other relationships that
Yeah.
I need some time for me. I need to sit and be quiet and not be in a relationship. But he had different ideas, and so I gave in to what he wanted.
Yeah.
So I look back now. I gave into, the thing, but back in the innermost parts of me, it's like, I need some time to get myself together.
Well, man, if they're handsome and charming, men can really be persuasive in talking you into that for sure. Okay, so you guys were friends for a few years, and then this is where we're ready into juicy stuff. So were you already broken up with his friend, or did he kind of like steal you from the friend?
No. That was my freshman year.
Oh,
The
okay,
friend
okay.
thing, that
I was
date,
long gone.
That was long gone.
Long
We
gone.
dated maybe 3-4 months or something.
Yeah, I see that.
He was even left college. He
Yeah.
wasn't even there anymore.
Let's not as juicy as I was.
Yeah, no. It was no crossover. We legitimately were friends for 3 years after the even the
All right. Well,
moved on.
that's
So,
fine.
yeah.
That's fine. No juicy stuff there. Okay, so you guys started dating, and then kind of walk me through that. So, how long did you date?
We actually dated for 4 years before we got married. So it was
Okay.
the senior year of college, and then 3 years after college, and
Okay.
got married.
What was it like? What were those first years kind of like being with him? And
It was an experience of duality. It
Yeah.
was the highs of love and romance and attention and affection and the fairy tale of friends now become lovers.
Right.
And
That is a really good story.
everybody in our college, like, it's about time. We always knew it. They're all perfect for each other. And so it was that.
so you felt like you were kind of fitting that what everyone else wanted in a way too.
Yeah, but it wasn't a conscious
Yeah.
thing. I wasn't
That feels
consciously-
good though.
Yeah,
To do
it
that
felt
for
good. It's like,
people.
oh my God, this
Yeah.
is so beautiful and great, and he's a great guy, and he's my friend, and all the things. And at the same time, there was as I have learned.
It's easy to look back.
I can look back as I've learned and who I am now and done the work and educated myself. Now I know there was that honeymoon period.
Yeah.
And then there was the flip. And
Yeah.
then I was like, whoa, what's happening here? I'm confused. So it was the kind of like, oh, I see this really great guy. Love, and he loves me, and we're great together. And then there's, oh, wait a minute, he's not being nice to me. He's not being kind to me. He's not being faithful to me.
Yeah.
What do I do? So my emotional state was in disbelief.
Yeah.
And I've also learned that I have the greatest gift of seeing potential. And falling in love with potential.
Oh my gosh. So Monique was on my podcast. She was episode 3.
I listened last night.
Yeah, and that's very similar, and I love her to death. And she said something really similar. And I've had the same problem. And it's a good and a bad thing though, because I feel like there is always that like duality. Like your greatest strength can also be your greatest weakness or opportunity, because I feel like when you're that type of person, you make a great coach. You make a great mentor or leader because you care and you do see that growth potential. Mm-hmm. But it's not always great in romantic relationships, because sometimes you're only seeing that. You're not really seeing, like, they're showing you. Mm-hmm. But it's like, no, I know they can do. It's like, but they don't change unless they want to.
Exactly. It's also the high achiever who I don't fail.
Yep.
I succeed at things. I don't quit. Mm-hmm. I can fix this. I can make this work. And if it doesn't work, then I get an F. That's the mindset. You know, for me it was like, okay, I can do this, and I wasn't wrong. I know I see what I see, but I also see this, but I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to marry the two of them. And that's the reality, is you can't marry the two. You have to see the truth of what is. And what I've also learned is to know oneself and to know what environment you can thrive in. Mm-hmm. What environment can you be successful in? Because there are some people who can deal with certain personalities and be just fine. Yeah. I think it's important for me now, understanding like strife and difficulty. I can't speak for everyone of what they're willing to tolerate or can thrive in. I can say truly for me and most people, you need a loving, nurturing environment to ever reach your full potential, to ever live the life that you really, really will feel complete and whole in. And we sometimes are willing to live at a deficit because most times we haven't ever been able to see what it means to live in complete wholeness. Yeah,
because if you haven't experienced it, I mean, like before I was with my husband, I'd never had someone give as much, if not more sometimes than I do. I was always the one like giving more. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't even have known what that was like. But now I can't imagine going back to that. And I, like you said, I look back at some of these people I was with and I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? You deserve so much better. Mm-hmm. But it's just, you don't know the difference, you know, especially if you've grown up in certain situations, like you said, with you get these habits, you get into these routines of being this type of person. And I think I relate to a lot of what you said with that too, because it's like you get fixed in that spot and it almost takes you, well, it does. It takes you really working on it, really that self-awareness, but sometimes also finding a love that is the right fit for you. Yeah. And you're like, wow, this is what it's supposed to feel like.
Yeah. And I the other thing that I know to be true is what I did not learn in my childhood, because even when I work with my clients, I'm always like, let's trace it back. Let's find there's a point. There's a place. Trace the shoulders, keep pulling until we get to the root. Yeah. That even in my childhood, I never learned, was never taught how to be in right relationship with myself. How to be in right relationship with myself. Because if I were in right relationship with myself, I would never have attracted to myself something that would have been in opposition to that. Yeah. And so to get me to the place that I was in a wrong relationship outside of myself, I neglected the truth of who I was. I did not love on the parts of me that made me me. I didn't love on my voice because, see, I was born blunt. People call it blunt and harsh. I call it direct. I was born direct in my speaking, and I remember my mother telling me, everything that comes in your mind does not need to come out of your mouth. So I needed to develop some of that. But when you get to a point where you're getting the feedback of your directness is not acceptable, your truth and how you speak it is not acceptable. So you learn to mute that to some degree. You know, I learned that I grew up skinny in my body, right? So the girls were developing in ways that I didn't develop, so that I felt self-conscious that, okay, I'm not the sexy girl. I'm not the one that the girls say, yeah, I'm pretty, but I'm not the one that the guys want at this point in time. So that's that body shaming that we hold on to, you know, getting to a point of, you know, like I said, your voice, your values, what's really important to you in life, in comparing it to what's going on, and everybody else has different values. So how do I navigate who I am? All that set the stage for me to be in a position of not knowing my power and my truth and my value, that I allowed myself to end up in a relationship, in a 28-year marriage where I was not valued, because it started with me not being in integrity with myself.
When did he start to play professional football?
Right after college.
Right after college. What was it like? Like, a lot of people are interested in that kind of world. It's an interesting world to be in, and I'm sure that was part of also what kept you in that relationship for so long, because it's exciting, it's glamorous, it's whatever.
Not so much on the inside.
Tell me. It's interesting. So share what you feel comfortable sharing. But what was it like being the wife of a professional football player?
It is that people look from the outside and assume that it is glamorous, it's enjoyable, it's great, it's the best life ever. And it's no different than, I shouldn't say no different, but when it gets to the bottom line basement, it is life, it is a career, it's just a job.
Yeah.
It is a job. You know, in college, yes, that was fun. Yeah. Because it's college. But in the NFL, it's work. It's a job. It's job security. It's a 9 to 5.
A lot of pressure,
you go to work, you know, there are expectations. There's the whole entire world looking at the career, having say and a word about it. And then there are the people who think it's glamorous, women especially, who then think it's so glamorous and so cool. So let me make myself overly available to men, married or not.
They don't care.
They don't care.
Wow.
And in the temptation of that for any human, I don't care what your value system or who you are, if everywhere you go there are women waiting at the door, every city you travel to that's like, here I am and I'm available. Yeah. We didn't have social media back then.
Why do you do that?
You know, it's just like, hey, I'm just here, and I know you're married, and I know you got kids, but that's okay, because if I get a piece of this, it's so... That was not an easy thing to navigate.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's a very challenging thing. And then the pressure of the career, of knowing that on Sunday everybody is analyzing everything and your life is impacted by that. It's not something that you say, oh, please feel sorry for me for that.
Well, no, but it's interesting to hear that viewpoint, because there's all kinds of shows, and, you know, I feel like even those, they still make it so glamorous a lot of times that, you know, there's that realness that you're talking about that's good. I think people need to, and that's what I want with this podcast. I want it to be real and for people to understand, like I said, all the different parts of love and loving a professional athlete. You know, my first guest was Tiffany Vandermark. She was married to Ric Flair, who everyone knows Ric Flair, you know, famous wrestler, and it's not all glamour, and they're real people. You're a real person, and it's just crazy to me though that women do that. I can't imagine not caring. It's like, come on, like, don't.
Yeah, it's a thing, but there are great parts of it. I've developed great relationships in that world. It's a It's a small world, and we get to collaborate and support each other, and you met some lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And it's a community that I thoroughly appreciate having the exposure and the opportunity. So I don't want it there are the challenges, and that's duality in all things.
Duality, yeah.
You know, there's the challenge, and you get to decide how much, it's worth it. So for me, there were people that would look at me and say, you said, oh, that's probably what kept you there longer. No, not at all.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to address. So
what kept me there was growing up in my faith in the Christian church, that God hates divorce.
Yeah.
I made a commitment. I wanted it to work. I had children. I wanted them to have parents that loved and cared for each other in a stable home. I felt like having a 2-parent household was important. And in the fact, again, that I wasn't in a right relationship with myself, I did not honor as much the impact it was having on me, how much it was robbing me of the ability to live a life of joy and fulfillment. So I didn't honor myself in that. However, I do not have any regrets. I do not look at my life experience and say I should have done anything different, because then it means I wouldn't have my 3 children and my granddaughter. And so I can't do that. And all the things that I've learned, what I did do during the experience is continue to cry out in prayer, like, please don't allow this to be in vain. Let this be for purpose. Let me use this. Let this be something that I can manage and use. And so that's where I am now, is to tell my truth in a way that's honorable, still to my children and my grandchildren, that anyone here I speak, it's really about, yes, these truths happen. I went through a lot. I was not treated in the way that I should have been treated. Yeah. And I didn't treat myself the way that I should have treated myself. And in that, some of the decisions I've made since then have been about my grown adult daughters, so that I can show them that once you're enlightened, once you know better, you do better, as Maya Angelou says. Yes. And so as I grew and I learned and I developed and realized this is no longer sustainable, but I did it and I knew why I was doing it for my children. And some people believe that you should leave for the children. I don't think there's no blanket right or wrong answer. For me, in my soul, I knew what was best, and that's what I did. And when I felt released was when my youngest daughter was graduating from high school. Yeah. It was like, you've done your job, you've done your part, and now it's time to go. Yeah. And that's what I did. So I don't put it. My children did have some effects from it. Sure. They would have had effects even if I divorced earlier. Children, they're going to have effects no matter what. So, but I don't have any regrets, because I'm using it all. I believe everything that's happened in my life has been for my good, even the things that didn't feel good.
I love that. So rewinding a little bit again, what were some red flags? We'll talk about lessons and more of that, which you already thrown out some great nuggets that are going to be so helpful for people. What were some of the red flags in your relationship, even back when you were dating, if there were any? But can you share some of that, because people that might be listening and watching might be helpful for them to know?
Red flags were things of, like I said, being mean. Just operating out of a mean spirit, mean communication. That's how I describe it. Being harsh, like truly hurtful.
Like on purpose.
And I can't say on purpose or not on purpose, because I can't get into another person's full intention.
But it felt intentional to you.
Well, it felt wrong. It felt hurtful. It felt hurtful, and the reason I'm hesitant in saying that is because sometimes I've learned that sometimes people have learned certain communication styles in ways of getting their point across, that they haven't had the development around how to communicate or how to deal with their emotional state in a way that's healthy, that is subconscious. Right. So I can't say it's purposeful, that I'm intentionally going to say this in this manner because I'm trying to hurt you. So sometimes, intentionally to hurt. Sometimes this is the only way that I know how to communicate when I get upset. Regardless of the intention, sometimes I tell people, because I've heard this also, is, it's not like what I meant to do. It's kind of like, well, if you shoot me by accident,
Right.
it doesn't matter. I got a bullet in my body. The outcome is still the same. It's not the intention. But nonetheless, the red flag was, as I look back, hindsight 2020, it's like, okay, if things don't go your way and you snap on me and then you blame me for what is you, so you deflect off of your bad behavior. So if I caught you doing something you shouldn't have been doing, then you flip it on me, somehow it's my fault.
Yeah.
That's a red flag.
Right.
Of
Right.
not accountability, putting on to me what doesn't belong to me, and me then starting to doubt myself as it's done a number of times. Like, wait, did I do
Yeah,
that?
you almost
Wait,
feel crazy then.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
am I wrong? Should I not see it that way? Am I crazy? So whenever the starting of doubting self, the crack has been opened,
Yeah.
and now it gets exploited. So that was a red flag. Infidelity.
Yeah.
That's
that's
not a red
that's a big
flag.
red
That's
flag.
a blaring
Yeah.
in your face. This
Yeah.
isn't going to bode well for you.
Right.
That if a person can't be honest and true and faithful,
Yeah.
then where do you go from there?
And I mean, I'm like you mentioned, all the temptation of being a professional athlete, but it's still, those are excuses, right? I mean, so that's still, and it's so hurtful to the other person. It hurts the trust.
It hurts the trust, but again, I always go back to, what was it about me that allowed me to accept that? What was it about me that was okay? Because everybody outside of me gets to choose and do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
You want to be a cheater, be a cheater. If you
Right.
want to be a liar,
But
be
you
a
don't have to
liar.
accept it.
But I don't have to accept
Right.
it. And it was me who decided somewhere in my being that was okay. And I've traced back again to my childhood of people in my community, me growing up seeing men being unfaithful to their wives, like
Yeah.
an epidemic kind of thing. And seeing that in the community, it wasn't ever anything that I said, oh, that's okay.
I know that
knew,
happened to me.
I
Nobody
knew
says
it was
that.
wrong.
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
it was wrong, but it
Yeah.
desensitizes you
Sure. Yeah.
to something. Because one thing that I knew for sure I would never take is someone hitting me.
Sure.
See, we all have our certain things like, oh, I know I would never do that, and I can
It's your
understand.
line in the
And then
sand.
you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't understand anybody that would accept that. No, it's not my. That's a decision. If I had decided I would never take infidelity, then I never would have taken it.
Yeah.
If I had decided I would never take a man talking down to me, then I never would have taken it. It was about decisions that I didn't even know that were important for me to make.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We all have our levels that we'll take. Like you said, that line in the sand, and it's interesting. Some people have things they're fine, I don't want to say fine, but they're willing to accept. And then others, it's not the same for everyone. And that's interesting that you brought that up because of being desensitized. And I know that that's a thing because it's with me, same thing with me. And it was something I had to really, really work on because I feel like I grew up in such a chaotic, just argumentative, my parents they said terrible things to each other all the time. The arguing was just constant. And so for me, that was just, I was used to that. I was used to having this very controlling, dominant sort of force. And I didn't really realize that I was comfortable in that state, again, until you start to do the work. And then you're like, wait a second, I'm accepting these other things. I almost went in the other direction. I sought out relationships with people that were almost nomadic, so they would have no control over me. Interesting, right? And I was like, why am I just so repellent to having relationships? And then I was like, well, I don't want to be controlled. And it took figuring that out first of all, and then realizing, well, wait, I can be in a relationship and also not be controlled, because that was my line in the sand. I was like, I will never let anyone control me. So I was like crazy independent, right? We all have our thing. But then I was blinded by, I had boyfriends cheat on me. I had them do all this stuff. And like you said, I'm like, that should have been, my friends were like, why are you letting them do this to you? And I'm like, yeah, but they're not controlling me. They're not controlling me. So it's okay. But it's funny, we accept things and it's almost like we think they're okay until we do the work and realize they're actually not okay. And there's patterns. And I love, like, from a scientific standpoint, I love the patterns with why people do the things that they do. And it is almost always traced back to childhood.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether you realize it, you keep digging, it eventually will come back into something. Yeah.
So what was your breaking point in the relationship?
The breaking point was actually my mother and her illness.
And you talked about
that in the book. And that she went through a lengthy illness.
Yeah.
And in her last days, I began to crumble in multiple ways. Crumbling. It just crumbled. I mean, the marriage, I was in a business with my ex-husband at the time that just, again, another one of those things that I knew I did not want to do, but that be a good wife, go along with, be supportive, and then ended up it being a nightmare. So I had the business, I had my daughter, I still had my children, and my mother, she lived with us, so taking care of her on a full-time basis and managing her care while my brother lived in South Carolina, so he could do what he would do. But the main responsibility was on me, and I had my nephew's support. So it's not like I was in it alone, but I carried the majority of the weight. So it was just a lot, and it just was like this perfect storm of things that came. And I was sitting in my mother's room, and I shared that in the book as well one night, and I felt my heart rate just racing, and I looked at my watch, and I was like, what's going on?
If your watch could talk, it would be like, get out!
Yeah, but I was just literally just sitting, reclining in the seat, like literally with her in the bed over there, and dying from congestive heart failure, and here my heart is now going whack-a-mole, and my feeling lightheaded, and you're like, whoa, okay, you have reached your limit of what you can take.
And your mortality is like right there in your face too, and you're thinking, ooh, I don't have forever here, so
yeah, you better, because I had ideas of things I wanted. When my middle child went to college, my idea was she'll go to college, and then I have one daughter left. I have time and space to figure out what I really want to do, because again, I had given up my career, right?
Yeah.
So I neglected that intellectual part of me. I've done some different things in the in-between, but it wasn't really what I loved. Yeah. And so this is going to be the time. I put it off. Now it's going to be the time. And what did I do? Yeah. I went and started a business with somebody else and their dream and what they wanted. And I said, okay, I'll put me off again. So I put myself off again, and that was terrible. And I paid a high price physically, emotionally, mentally, relationally, with friends. I disconnected. It just was not a good scene. And so I got to the point where it's like, okay, death is staring you in the face, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to die one day. Of course you're going to die one day, but no, you're really going to die one day.
Yeah.
You get this, and if you don't change something, this is not going to go well. And something just clicked to me, like, I have to do something different. So I walked through my mother's death. That happened in a few weeks, and then that was November, and then Christmas came, and Christmas was dark in our relationship, and it was like, can we just have a happy Christmas? That didn't go the way that I wanted it to. It was my first Christmas without my mother, so that was heavy and emotional, and I wasn't getting the support that I felt that I needed, and so that was hard. And then my daughter, my oldest, was pregnant with our first grandchild, and her baby shower was happening, and it's just like something happened around Christmas. If I say, the reality is I say it was my mother and in that night, but what was really the final straw was during Christmas one night. There was something going on, loudness, nothing bad, just loudness. We're trying to watch a TV, my brother, they making noise. It was like, can y'all be quiet? Nonetheless, it's a simple thing, but I knew in that moment, if I say something, I'm going to get an ugly response. Yeah. So I didn't say anything for a while, to the point I could no longer not say anything. And then when I did say something, I'm now having an anxiety attack. That's my heart rate thing again. Is when I'm having an anxiety attack, so can you stop? And the response was so cold, like so freezing cold, that in that moment I was stunned, and I was around my family. It was just stunning. I separated myself for a while, and I went to my room, and I said, he doesn't care anything about you. He does not. It was just like this. He does not care about you.
Yeah.
This is your life here. This is your heart. This heart doesn't work. You're done.
Yeah.
Flatlined. And I'm saying this is happening. And it was like, just because of, I won't even say what it, regardless, it was really hard and cold. And in that moment, I realized, you're not cared for. You don't matter to him. He can dispute that, but that was my message. And that's when I decided. Once I got that clear, once it wasn't, does he love me, does he not, is it, I'd moved far beyond that a while before, but nonetheless, it was in that moment, and I'm seeing that even in this moment, how
I know,
clear,
I can,
how
see
clear
that.
in that moment, my eyes would just open. And
I was taken back, that's why I'm being so quiet, you made that beautifully, you pictured that beautifully. I could, see the whole moment. That's crazy.
Yeah, so that was the defining last straw. That once I get clear, that's what I know. Once I get clear on anything, I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't have to discuss it anymore. And there's no one in the universe that could ever talk me out of it. And that's what was surprising for him at that point.
Yeah, because he probably didn't think you were serious, but he didn't know.
It was a couple late January that I'm like, okay, here's the announcement. I'm done. And in my because there was a point I realized, okay, I'm really done and I'm gonna do this. But my daughter was having a baby. My other daughter was graduated from high school.
There's never a perfect time, though.
And then my nephew, who's like a son to me, was getting married.
Yeah.
I mean, all these things in the next 6 months. And here I'm done. And talk with the close family, my cousin. And it's like, do you think it's the right time to say it? And all honesty, because it could get really ugly.
Yeah.
It could get really ugly in this transition. But this part of me that is of integrity and honesty, it said, no, I have to tell the truth. This is where I am, and I can't fake for 6 months that I'm here and I'm not.
Well, it sounds like you had been putting yourself off and putting off doing what you wanted to do for so long.
Mm-hmm.
How long are you supposed to do that? It gets to a point where there's always a reason it's not a good time.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to feel good to end a marriage, or in my case where I had to leave, it was not exactly the same, but you never feel good leaving people that you do love, even if it's flawed and it's toxic for you. There's never the clouds part and it's here's the beautiful way for you to leave. At least I've never heard that before. It's messy, but it sounds like you did have everything aligned, at least on your end, that you needed to just know, your whole body's get out.
Yeah.
And that's where when I decided to do this podcast, it was really after I did my TEDx talk, which was, inspired by my escaping a situation. And I've always said, if even one person hears this or watches it and is wondering if they should leave, or maybe they've been spending years and years doing what you said, pushing, no, I'll do it here, I'm gonna wait for this moment. I did the same thing. There's never a perfect time. You do need to make sure you can survive, have some stuff figured out, but don't wait your life away, because you never know when your last moment is.
Exactly.
You just don't know. Okay, so if you could give advice, you've already given, again, some amazing nuggets, but if you could give advice to someone who's in a similar situation to what you've been through, what's, one really, really awesome piece of advice you'd give them?
I would say one of the main things that helped me get to the point of being at the end was getting to a place of recognizing that in every situation in my life, I was the common denominator.
Responsibility.
And so I'm the common denominator, therefore I created this. That's the choice I made. Not condemnation, not criticism, and not blame. Ownership.
Yeah.
That I created this. And if I created this, I have the power to create something different. So even when someone looks at their situation, don't give away your power and say, they are doing this to me and they created this, and if they didn't do this, I wouldn't be where I am. No, take it back and say, I own that I allowed this to happen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of me owning that, I can own that I can create something different. And it took a long time, typically took a long time to get there. Understand and know that it will take time, but there are people, there's systems, there are tools, there's skills, there is support that can help you, because one of the things that happens in these situations, we become isolated.
Yeah.
And in that isolation, when we don't, that's why Radiate Real is important to me, is to open up places that women can come and tell the truth and be honest about their challenges, because when you speak it out loud, when you tell it to someone else, you can also hear for yourself what's really happening, because what's in here, it's all muddled.
Yeah.
But when you get it out, you're like, whoa, I get to see
And
what's
then
happening.
it is real.
And it's real.
Yeah.
And someone else can even mirror back to you what they heard you say. And then you can begin to strategize a path forward for yourself, that you don't have to ever believe that you have to stay there, because you have the power to change any circumstance, no matter what anybody else is telling you, even if it's you, your own mind telling you you can't. It is a lie.
Yeah, you can.
You can.
So besides Radiant Real, what are some other, how has going through this and a lot of the things you've done in your past, how has that kind of influenced your professional path?
Oh,
so you've had an interesting professional path.
Yeah. It's funny, I was in a networking group here once, and they had a question of a game. You had to put the person's name next to it. One of it was serial entrepreneur. And I was thinking of all the other people, and then they were like, and Trina, when they gave the answer, I'm like, me? I'm not a serial entrepreneur. And then when she said, you own a bookkeeping company, you own a transportation company. I said, okay, I get it. Didn't see it that way.
It kind of make it sound bad.
It sounds bad. You're a serial killer or something.
I'd prefer to say you're like entrepreneurial genius.
Yeah. Serial entrepreneur, like you can't make up your mind what you want to do. But in coming out of the business, the transportation company, it was like, it's my turn. What do I do? Who am I, and what do I want to do? And so coming out of that, it helped me to just step back and take a moment, because I've always loved, though I majored in chemistry and had science, I always loved psychology, and I love supporting people and seeing them reach their full potential. So coming out of all of that professionally and all that has transitioned me nicely into this work of coaching, of being wise counsel to women, of creating environments for them to thrive, because my life experience has taught me through all of this that having community and having support and using your story. So it's really about my story, and I thank you so much for this opportunity again to even share more of it, because the more I tell it, the more comfortable I am doing so. And so it shaped me. In Radiate Real is just a part of a broader calling upon my life. An assignment that I have for the days remaining here is to be a resource, a support for women, that we level up our leadership and we come into the fullness of who we are, and we get to move out and radiate into the world all our gifts and talents in freedom and with joy and fulfillment. So I believe my life experiences showed me how I lost myself and how to take yourself back, and that it's possible. So that's how it's influenced me now professionally.
That's awesome. And that's a big kind of common theme throughout everyone I've had on here. I always want people that have used these, dark love experiences, whatever you want to call them. We've all had things happen to us, but you have a choice. You can either take it, learn from it, and use it to fuel your passion, your success, or you can keep, being a victim and say, like you said, not take responsibility, be negative, let all those dark thoughts take over. You have done the opposite, and I just thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being an inspiration. It's awesome. The other cool thing about you is that you found romantic love again.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty cool story too. Do you want to tell
A little bit, if you want to share it. But I mean, that was one of the first things you told me when I met you, and I just thought it was adorable. So, tell everyone about your love story now.
Well, it's a love story that dates back, again, many, many years ago. We dated when I was 19 years old.
If it was the friend that you were dating that your ex-husband took, like, you went out with before.
No.
I was like, wait a second, is it?
No crossover here at all.
Sorry.
And
I won't try to make that happen.
Yeah, he got shipped off in the Marine Corps and lost touch for 35 years and reconnected. And it's kind of like, I'm thinking right now, like, it's just been a journey. It's been a journey. In all honesty, it is a great love story. And at the same time, I was still healing. Yeah. In the midst of it. So it's been a journey. It hasn't been an easy experience. And so I don't want to paint this to people as, it's just been sunshine and roses and all the things.
Listen, I have that on the banner for this podcast. This isn't about fairy tales.
Yeah.
Fairy tales are bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay? Sorry to cuss, but they're bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been us finding each other again at these, our stages of life, bringing all our own baggage together and our past, and for me, knowing I'm still processing and healing and having to distinguish sometimes when things show up. Is this that, or is this something different? Yeah. Am I repeating a pattern, or am I not? Getting to a place that I can even trust myself. That I'm making a good decision, that I'm in the right place, and how do I use my voice again, and how do I stand true for my values, and how do I maintain the integrity of myself and not lose it again in another relationship. So all the things I've had to transition with and work through, and we're doing that, and we're still in the process of even doing more of that, because it's a journey, and I'm still in the process of taking more and more and more of my power back that I relinquished throughout my 59 years of life. Yeah. And so I suspect, I don't know it to be true because I'm not on the end yet, but I suspect that I will be doing this for the rest of my life, because life keeps giving us opportunities to leak power, to relinquish our power, to lose our integrity. And so it's a day-to-day journey, and I want people to not get discouraged, because I was a person that was like, you know what, I like to check things off my list. Boom, checked off divorce, checked off bad relationship, not doing that again. I now know how to speak, I know how to talk. No, tomorrow is going to give me another opportunity to choose. Do I choose to be in good relationship with myself, or do I choose to relinquish my power to someone else? So I would love for your audience to walk away with that as a critical piece, that this is a journey. Don't get discouraged. It's to be expected that you're going to have highs and lows. I'll share this vision here to end with from this point, because I became discouraged with the ups and downs of life. Yeah. It's like every time there's an up, but God, there's a down. And then there's an up. And there's a, when can this just be good? And I had a colleague, I was sharing this with her, a coach friend, and she just pointed out to me, it reminds me of the EKG.
Oh, wow,
boop, 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 boop. And when it flatlines, we're dead. So how we know we're alive is that we have the ups and downs. That's how we know we're alive.
So stop trying to flatline. Enjoy the ride.
If you try to flatline, maybe we're trying to kill ourselves, and maybe that's the problem of why we end up in all these things, because we keep trying to find drugs and relationships and working out and all these things that pacify ourselves, because we can't accept the truth of what life really is.
That's a really powerful way to end this. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. How can people get in touch with you if they want to?
Trina K. Sherman. Trina K. Sherman with an I.
Trini. It's my parents. That's a whole nother story.
I know, I was going to ask you
It's the whole story. My mother said a college professor told her you can pronounce your name any way you want. So that was part of her.
Mom.
That was her, I guess, rebellious moment. This is how I want to say it, standing in her power. And so I just say I'm thankful it gives me some color and something to talk about and keep people on their toes. Yeah. So it's anything. All my handles are Trini Sherman.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on, and thank you everyone for listening and watching this episode. Make sure you subscribe and or follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify so you never miss a new episode of Love Means Business. Also, make sure to follow us on social media for more behind-the-scenes content and highlights. Remember, love is a powerful force that will impact your life in many different ways. Never let the bad overshadow the good. Keep loving, learning, and leveling up. Till next time.